So now we know how much power our engine makes with the stock intake. Let's go remove it and install our aftermarket intake. And this is gonna be super easy to do. We're gonna be using all common tools so you could do this at home. One thing I wanna mention, this is a non-PI engine and this is a PI intake. So we're gonna have to do a little bit of retrofitting to make it work with our engine. It's not difficult to do. There's a few extra parts and I'm gonna cover all of it in the video as we go. I'll also be sure to link all the tools and products I use in this video in the description so you can easily find them. And with that, let's go get started removing the intake. And to do that, there are 4 things we need to do. First, we need to remove the negative battery cable and also drain all of the coolant. After that, we need to remove the throttle body. Then we need to remove the alternator. And finally, there's going to be 2 fuel rails, a couple of wires and hoses on the top here. We're going to move off to the side so we get access to our intake bolts. But before we do any of that, dust and dirt settles on the engine just from driving. And you don't want any of that dust and dirt to get into the engine when we remove everything. So what I like to do is use a leaf blower or compressed air and just knock off all that loose dirt and debris so it doesn't get into the engine and damage the engine as you remove all these parts. And with all that loose dirt blown off the engine, now we can remove our negative battery cable. We want to do this because we're going to be removing the alternator and we don't want to cause a short. And with the negative cable removed, there's no power running through any of these wires, which is what we want. So now let's go and drain the coolant. And if you go to the bottom corner of your radiator, there should be a valve to drain your coolant. So get a drain pan, crack that valve, and then unscrew the valve until the coolant starts to drain, just like so. And after you're done draining your coolant, you don't want to leave it in open sweet, and animals like your cat or your dog might drink it, and that wouldn't be good. It could kill them. So instead of keeping it out, put it in a container you could seal, and you can take this to get recycled at your local recycle center, some parts stores, and some of your local mechanic shops and dealerships will take this so that your pets like Cooper stay safe. So now we can move on to the next step, which is to remove the throttle body. And the throttle body has a lot of connections to it. You have the throttle cable, you have all these wires and hoses and vacuum lines, and the intake. So instead of removing every single thing and losing track, what we're going to do is we're going to remove as little as possible, unbolt the throttle body, and then just move the throttle body to the side. But before we do that, a top tip is grab your camera and take pictures of all the different connections all the way around the engine. So if you forget where something goes, you don't have to worry about it. You can reference all these pictures, zoom in, and see where it goes. And that is super helpful just in case you forget something. I know a lot of people always say that they're afraid that if they disconnect a lot of things, they're not going to know where it goes back. That fixes that problem. So now let's get started removing the throttle body. We're going to have to disconnect the idler air control valve, some vacuum lines, the throttle position sensor, and some more vacuum lines.
Let's
and
go,
then the
mate.
EGR, which is pretty tight on here, so a few good hits should loosen that up. Now we can remove the 5 bolts holding the throttle body and plenum into the intake. Now the whole assembly should come right off and we can lay it on the fender out of the way. Perfect. So with the throttle body and filter removed, now we can move on to the next step, which is to remove the alternator. But before we do that, we're going to have to remove the water pump in order to install one of these brand new fittings. And since we're going to be removing the water pump, we might as well replace the water pump with a brand new one. Preventative maintenance, it was cheap enough. And in order to get the old water pump out, we need to remove those bolts on the pulley. Since our belt is still attached, now's the perfect time to do that. So break loose the 4 bolts holding the pulley on, and now we can remove the belt tension. To do that, grab a breaker bar and slide the square end into the tensioner assembly. Then pull the breaker bar, which loosens the tension on the belt, so we could remove it. Now let's get these spark plug wires out of the way and disconnect the power cable coming from the alternator. Then remove the 3 bracket bolts holding the alternator in. And a little trick is to put the bolts back into the part so you don't lose track of where they go. Next, remove
what?
connectors from the alternator. There's only 2 bolts holding this alternator in. On that side, there's going to be a couple of wires, the thermostat housing here, and then a couple of hoses back there that we're just going to move off to the side of this connect. Then we can unbolt our intake and remove it. So let's get this driver's side fuel rail off, which is held in by 2 bolts. That's one, and we'll get the other one loose, and that's the other. Then it just pops off like that. Now let's move over to the passenger side and do the same exact thing. There's a bolt here, good, and a bolt here, good. And now we can pop off the fuel rail just like that. Now in the meantime, the fuel rail is free and loose. We should have a wiring harness that we need to disconnect, and that runs all the way to the main connector right here. So unscrew the bolt holding this in, and it should come right out. Now the wiring harness and the fuel rails can be pulled out of the way over here. Perfect. Now let's remove the heater hose from the back corner of the intake. Do that by sliding the clip up the hose and then pull the hose off the intake. Now all we have left to remove is the thermostat housing. So remove the 2 bolts at the top. That's one, and that's the other. Move this housing out of the way. Alright, so with a quick inspection, you can see everything is removed and everything is holding the intake in so it's easier to slide that intake out. And before you remove the plug wires, a tip is to label each wire so you know which wire goes to which spark plug when you reinstall it. So remove the wires on this side, and remove the wires on the other side as well. Now we need to remove all 9 10mm bolts at the top of the intake, which are the only things holding it in.
Me?
And with the last bolt removed, the intake comes right out. Next we need to plug the intake ports, and I like to use aluminum foil to do this. I use foil to get back in there and really shape it to the contours of the ports so no dirt could fall into the head. And with that sealed, let's remove both